one chap ends up with $30 million of this money. We think in cash, and he just vanishes.
It exists because it's profitable and because it's still invisible.
It seemed so impossible that I kept thinking someone was going to tell me I'd got it wrong.
The infinite game is managing risk in the past, present, and future.
We have the financial resources to be able to commit to this infinite game, but we need the political will.
It is an infinite game because greed is infinite.
The Bangladesh bank job is a perfect illustration of 24/7 crime and 9-to-5 defences. Back in February 2016, the Central Bank of Bangladesh, the National Bank of Bangladesh, started receiving emails from a job applicant. Sent emails in, we think, to the HR department, attaching his CV. That CV turned out to be a virused attachment. The hackers then squirreled their way through Bangladesh Bank's computer systems. They sat there for months and months and months, almost a year, before doing anything, and they finally went into action in February 2016 on a Thursday evening. You've got to realise in Bangladesh the weekend runs from Friday to Saturday, not Saturday to Sunday as it does in a lot of other countries. Now that's important because the bank is emptying out for the weekend. So they know that they've got Thursday and Friday and Saturday with the bank staff emptying out. The money that they're moving is in New York. And obviously on Friday in New York, it's business as usual. So when the hackers start requesting these SWIFT transfers, the bank in New York is enacting the transfers. As Bangladesh Bank starts to tumble to what's happening, then we roll into Saturday when the New York bank is minimal staffed and they're not really receiving emails and answering calls and so on. The other part of this sort of triangle, you've got Bangladesh, you've got New York, the money gets sent to the Philippines, which, brilliantly, the Monday in the Philippines was a bank holiday, Lunar New Year. When Bangladesh and New York finally wake up to the problem on the Monday, they're trying to trace the money to the Philippines, where it's a bank holiday in that country as well. It was brilliantly put together. So all of this took a lot of time, a lot of patience, a lot of skill. So initial intrusion point, pretty simple. Thereafter, things got very complex and very detailed very quickly.
Financial crime is exceptionally complex these days. There are many different flavors of financial crime and many different ways of exploiting vulnerabilities in the system. So our customers are facing an incredible challenge to try to identify what might really be happening behind the scenes.
They've then got the problem of extracting the cash. I think when we calculated it, it was the weight of a grand piano's worth of banknotes. They got trucks to come and take the money in cash. They then shipped it to 2 casinos in Manila. Now, the challenge with a casino is, if you're anything like me, you walk in, you gamble some money, you just lose the lot. They want to gamble the money, but they don't want to lose the money. Usefully, the casinos had what turned out to be a very, very good system for this, unintentionally. If you're really rich, you don't gamble on the floor with hoi polloi like me, you have your own private room. So these are private rooms within the casino, like a casino within a casino. And in those private rooms, they're playing baccarat day after day after day. Now, baccarat's really important because when you play baccarat, if you have 2 players at the table who are both working for you, you can balance them up, effectively changing money between the 2 of them. If you're really good at playing baccarat, you can get back 90% of what you put in. So as a money laundering exercise, this was brilliant because they lost only 10%. As a money laundering fee, that is an absolute steal. And of course, at the end of the day, the gamblers can take their winnings in chips, change it to cash, walk out the door with it, and the money is washed.
When I first started writing and talking about corruption, and particularly the role of Western countries like the UK and the US in moving and receiving stolen money, it seemed so impossible that I kept thinking someone was going to tell me I'd got it wrong. The way I try to describe it is that almost all crime is done for money. People only commit crime because it's profitable. Without money laundering, no one would commit these crimes. Those crimes are only committed because they can launder the proceeds and then spend it. So if we cut out the money laundering system, if we cut out the shell companies, if we cut out this entire service industry for laundering the proceeds of crime, I'm not saying there'd be no crime, but there'd be very little crime.
Why is it so difficult to fight financial crime? Because there's bad actors out there who are very determined to make money and to hide that money and to hide the way that they've earned it. And so they exploit vulnerabilities in the global financial system. And in the way that regulations have been written, there are always gaps and they will always find them. But it's our job to help our customers with better data and new technologies and the many different tools that are at our disposal.
The difficulty that we have is in the design of the world economy. Laws are national, they are constrained within borders. Money, wealth, is international. It moves freely wherever its owners wish to move it or whether its stewards wish to move it. You essentially are able to avoid any form of accountability for the process by which you acquired your money. If it's easy to keep money that you've stolen, that's a really good incentive for stealing more money.
Money laundering is a sort of conduit through which money from all these different types of crime is moving. It's the sort of cement really that holds the criminal underworld together, the organised crime underworld together. If you can push back on that money laundering, particularly on the high-tech money laundering, you stand a good chance of impacting on crimes in multiple different areas.
UBOs are the ultimate beneficial owners of a company, or the individual who ultimately controls a given entity. When it comes to money laundering, sometimes bad actors will use beneficial structures to obscure their ownership of a company in order to facilitate money laundering. Criminals stay one step ahead. Once we figure out how to monitor them and to track down their new techniques, they're moving on to the next technique. And for those reasons, it's up to us to be as motivated to stop them as they are in order to make a profit.
What this story tells us is a number of things. Number one, we have this idea that cybercrime is just lines of code on a screen. Well, no, it's a physical end to cybercrime. So you're talking about bank branch employees being involved in this. So at a certain point, cybercrime stops being lines of code on a screen, starts being about people in the world. And what you're looking for is to line people up in these positions where they can effectively be used and exploited and then ditched afterwards after you've got out with the money. So again, it paints this interesting picture of cybercrime as not being quite as antiseptic as we think it might be. People's lives do get ruined as part of this.
So, the role of good companies, the decent companies, is to do the right thing and to reduce the amount of space that there is available for financial crime to take place. The less space there is available, the more companies do the right thing, then the more obvious it will be who's doing the wrong thing.
We struggle to work out where the money goes after the casinos, and that's deliberate. That's the idea of money laundering. If we could answer all those questions, the laundering would have failed. We do know that one chap ends up with $30 million of this money, we think in cash, and he just vanishes. The other 50 million of the total 81 million stolen, we think ends up in Macau. But this has to happen with somebody inside the bank being complicit. Because no matter how high-tech this stuff gets, no matter how much software is used, there's always somebody with their fingers on the keyboard. This apparently was the work of the bank branch manager. But what's interesting about this is the bank manager's response is, well, look, there were other people involved here. And there's an interesting question around that. Yes, the bank manager had a certain amount of autonomy over her own bank branch, but there were other things about this, the creation of the accounts, the IDs not being checked, the CCTV not happening. Some of that, yeah, you can see how the bank branch manager would be responsible for it. But some of it you can't help questioning and thinking, well, somebody senior at the bank must have known about all of this, and where's their liability? Why aren't they being investigated? The other thing that stands out to me is she is, in this entire story, basically the only woman involved. And it stands out to me that the only woman involved in it is the one who is at the moment carrying the can and getting extremely heavy penalty for it.
This story does underscore the extreme importance of having a comprehensive approach to anti-money laundering. The good news is that companies like Moody's are really amping up the pace of innovation and coming up with new and better data and tools to help our customers to really fight fire with fire.
The other thing that's important to realise is, in Bangladeshi society, there were a lot of questions about how this could have happened. How could the government have let this happen? How could the bank have let this happen? So the other cost to this, it's harder to quantify, is the erosion of trust in Bangladesh national institutions. And a lot of people looked very badly and very dimly at their government after this. The idea that this is a victimless crime is something I really want to push back against. It does have real world consequences. It does ruin people's lives. Bangladesh, for example, lost 81 million. That money's just gone. In the wake of the hack on the Bangladesh bank, there was a cyclone in Bangladesh that did $80 million worth of damage. Well, they could have repaired that damage with the money that was stolen from them by somebody else.
Every single thing that is bad in the world, whether that's war or dictatorship, climate change, inequality, all of the things, look at any list, every single one of those is made worse by corruption. And not only is every single one of those made worse by corruption, but tackling any of those is made harder by corruption. So money laundering, corruption, is the support service for all the worst people in the world. And if we stop it, or at the very least make it more difficult, we make life harder for the worst people in the world. And therefore, inevitably, we make life easier for the best people in the world.